Good morning, good morning. Let me just start at the top. So my name is Rob. I work on SuperScript. I work at Slack and on SuperScript. This is a passion project since about 2013. So there's a lot of people writing bots, and this is just another way of doing it. So Howdy is another great platform, and this is very similar in a lot of respects. And I'll just kind of walk through some of the basic stuff, and then we'll call it a day. Get back to writing bots. So SuperScript is a multi-platform dialogue management creating tool for building conversational interfaces. And I built it because writing natural language is hard. So this is like a common trigger. And a lot of systems under the hood, what they'll do is they'll take your input and then they'll basically build a regular expression, or you have to supply a regular expression. But building regular expressions is not easy. So in this case, the word natural is optional. There's also the star, so it means anything before this is fine. We want to see language is in either hard or tough. To write the regular expression, you've got to kind of do something like this. So in this case, there's word boundary detection, there's optionals. You've got to deal with, maybe there's more input at the end, maybe that's required, maybe it's not. All of these blocks are actually non-capturing with the exception of the last one. So I want to get tough or hard back and know what that is. So maybe I could put that into my reply later on down the road. There's also so much more to just building a bot. You need to be able to normalize your input, and SuperScript does that. So there's over 1,700 different words that we convert from Commonwealth English to US English. We also fix all of the concatenation. There's thousands and thousands of common typos. We take care of all of that even before the input comes in. And even after the input comes in, we end up doing some parsing on it. So if anyone's familiar with natural language processing, there's stemming, and you can either just put like a Porter stemmer or a Lancaster stemmer on the input to remove the inflections. But that's actually pretty aggressive because you end up with words that aren't actually words. So we go one step up and lematize the entire input. So it basically brings it back to something that's actually usable, and you end up getting better matches. So here's an example of a conversation. So this is essentially, the first line is, if I see anything, I want to reply. So the minus is a keyword that means just reply with this. What is your favorite color? And then on the next line, there's like any input that comes in, any one word that comes in, and if the last thing said was, what is your favorite color? I'm going to reply with the actual color captured from here, and say, is my favorite color too. So, I mean, this is a very simple example of just like writing, actually using something that someone's familiar with, writing a natural language, and then it actually works. And it'll handle, like I said, all of the inflections, all of the other hard stuff is kind of taken care of. Moving on. Sorry. Oh, natural scroll. The system is very extensible, so we have a concept of plugin, and there's a very rich plugin architecture. Because we're using Node.js, everything is asynchronous. So in this case, I'm actually calling out to a function that looks up the weather, and it takes what assuming is the city, passing it into this function to look up the weather, and then you've got essentially a node or a JavaScript file somewhere else in your system that will process, and it'll call essentially anything in node land, so any sort of NPM module is available to you. And again, it's asynchronous, so you can go out and get the weather. You can do a database lookup. What's kind of cool is inside these functions, the this operator, so the actual object itself, the scope, you have a user object. So the user that said this, you have a very rich set of information about who they are, what the last thing they said was, the last 15 things they've said, the last things that they matched. There's topics as well, where they've navigated to and from. As well as the message itself. So the message that we get in here is not necessarily just a string. It's actually a very rich object with, we do parts of speech tagging on it, we do so light parsing, we have multiple different forms, and we'll pull out some entities like the names, the nouns, the verbs, all that good stuff. And then we call out to the service and then reply back. And at the end of the day, there's also state. So you can get into some really complicated things. For example, if you want to be able to save a user's name, it's as simple as just calling a function out to do that, and it stores it for later on. And then as well, you can get and recall these things. As well, there's a There's a Drupal store built in. So if you want to do more complicated, not just key value, but subject, verb, object, graph style, knowledge extraction, and knowledge fulfillment, you can do that as well. And that's going to all built in using Level Graph, which is part of the one of Google's tools. Basically, anything you want to do, you can probably do it with SuperScript. Thanks, guys.